That's good. Okay, welcome everybody. I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, May 20th, 2026 regular meeting of the Downtown Development Authority. At this time, we will have public comment. Is there anybody who want to address the board? Mr. Harrison, come forward, please.
Bill Harrison, Downtown Property Owner. Mike, I left you a copy of the...
I didn't know who that was from you, but
Yeah,
thank you very much.
You were talking, I didn't want to interrupt you. But
when I get a chance, I will
When I
go through
was
that.
on the DDA, I found that very, very helpful.
Thank you very much,
So,
Mr. Harrison.
and Isaac's report is very good with the graphs. Anyway, got three things to talk about. The DDA was again ignored by the City Commission. As I've said before, the only time they ask you for information or participation is when they want something from you. And what I'm speaking directly about is this moratorium that they put on 4th Street regarding tattoo parlors and massage parlors that were previously not allowed in downtown. And there's a tattoo parlor on the south side of 4th Street. It was denied by, I don't know whether it was planning or zoning, one of the two. And then they came back and their fixer, that's my term for attorney, got it approved by the City Commission. And I just get, you know, ever since I was on the DDA, we were ignored unless by the City Commission unless they wanted something from us. That's point one. I wholly agree with what Isaac has said about getting rid of the reserved parking on the Center Street deck. I get irritated every time I go in that deck, and you've got to go up 3 flights before you can find a parking space, and all of the reserved spots are vacant. You know, it's just irritating. And then as far as the Center Street, the old Center Street deck, I would prefer that we find some way to tear that thing down and put a surface lot in. It's a strategic area in the center of downtown, and I think a surface lot would serve a lot more than another deck, or certainly a development, because if you get a high-rise development there, even if they provide parking, is it going to be, you know, if it's residents, it won't be available for public parking. You know, it's just ludicrous to have anything there but parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. And who's next? Mr. Holbrook.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Frank Hobrecht, and I'm here to represent 408 South Washington, the old Kresge building. So last month, and like the previous month, I spoke about our dirt alley that's behind our building. And in November of last year, there was a presentation made about what can be done. And it speaks about paving the alley. If anybody would have been behind our building on Monday, Tuesday, when the rains came through, you would have seen maybe about a moat, 2-3 feet of water, 2-3 inches thick of water. And if you want businesses to succeed, we've got to be reasonable about having customers have access to our building. We do not have pavement, we have dirt. And that dirt is a problem. It can't be a lot of money to pave that alley. I was also bringing to your attention because our neighbors on 5th Street are going to be blessed with a new public right-of-way. And I was reprimanded that I did not speak the number properly, and you're right, because in January of this year, the expenditure required was $4,246,733. And I realize that's the east side of Washington and 5th Street and the west side of Washington and 5th Street. Some of it will be done this year, some of it will be done next year. Regardless, it's still plus or minus $4.2 million. I'll let you know in a year from now what the final number says, because I know that there's cost savings and maybe cost increases that'll be coming on board. We're not asking for $4.2 million to pave our alley, but we're asking for something. I paid $67,497 in property taxes last year, and there's one building. My neighbor paid twice that much. Surely you could find some pavement for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holbert. Yes.
Hello, Janice Wagman, not a property owner, not a business owner in the downtown. But I'm here about the $1 million that's referenced in the Center Street parking structure document for new gated system in the parking structures. As you know, I'm a fan of the new parking system. I think it's awesome. I work it easily. My senior people that I normally help with technology don't have a problem using it. I haven't heard anything on social media about people having a problem with it. It's really great. But the Center Street document is referencing a new system, and when I went to the meeting, you mentioned LPR, and there's where my concern lies. I watched a video from one company who went through the whole process where you drove in and it recognized the front license plate. We don't have a front license plate, but I'm sure that could be adjusted for. But it recognized that. You went in, you did whatever you wanted to do. You paid before you came out at a kiosk, similar to what we have here. That's great. That would work really well. But there's other systems that don't have that. So if you're going to rely on anything that's got an app or a QR code or anything like that, and not include coinage or credit cards, preferably credit cards, then I fear you're going to lock out a lot of seniors. As much as we would love for them all to be able to use the technology, they don't. So that's important. So in the future, to include those types of things and consider that we have licenses on the back of our cars, not the fronts like what I see and where we ran into problems before. But the other issue is privacy. As you know, in Oakland County, we've got a lot going on about the FLAC system and data and that type of thing. So in considering a new system, this is all about as you're going through the process, if you're going to switch, consider whether it's going to have data collection, vehicle tracking, data sharing, retention policies, cybersecurity risks, and who has access to that information. There's a lot of people who are very upset about the FLAC system, and this would be comparable in some circumstances. So before implementing any LPR technology, I would like to see that you consider this. We already experienced a lot of loss due to former parking decisions that we made, and we don't want to do anything to discourage people from coming down or to be in the media or the press for implementing something that is probably not in the best interest of the city. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes?
Joseph Stout, I'm a resident on West Street. I'd like to talk about the West Street green space, as you've called it. You've recently installed a new play structure there for the little children. I thank you all for that. But what I've heard is going to be added next are 2 large concrete slabs. And I think they're really unnecessary. It's supposed to be a green space, and kids run and play in the grass there, as well as, you know, play on the play structure. And I don't think there's a need for any concrete slabs to be put to, you know, to have a bench or to have a garbage can when there's already a garbage can there. So it was always intended that this would be a green space, a buffer between that parking structure and the residents. And I know because I was the chairman of the Design and Build Committee for that structure 20-some years ago. So let's keep it a green space. Let's take whatever funds we're going to use to put those concrete slabs in, and let's get some more plantings in and refresh kind of the shrubbery, because that hasn't been touched in over 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes?
Hi. I'm also here about a garbage can and a bench. Not so lofty of a topic as some that we've heard today, but it's about the 5th Street Park. And again, I hope that we can return to the original vision of the small site that we have there. It was a pocket park. And we were thrilled to have a green buffer between the parking structure and the neighborhood. And when we negotiated for it, we said, sure, you can go up one more level on the parking structure, but please give us some green space in between the face of that large building and our houses. And that was granted, and they threw in a parking structure too, so you know, it was win-win-win. And we've revisited it lately, and I think the process has been interesting. I feel like we lost sight of what that original site was and its size. It was never intended to be a city park. It was intended to be a green buffer zone. So it can't be all things to all people. So when neighbors were surveyed, they thought they were getting pie in the sky and they could put 500, you know, square feet of structure in there, but we can't. So I plead for sanity. The bench situation, if we add the benches there, we didn't do that 20-some years ago for the same reason that I'm cautious about it today. I hate to say it, but we have a downtown homeless situation. Someone called the city about the park recently, last year. They came in and cut all the pine trees down because the homeless were bedding in there. Someone complained, I didn't. But again, like all the other park benches that are very close by in front of Stagecrafters and down the street in front of the doorways of St. Mary's, homeless will come, our homeless friends will come and bed down there. And they will do that in the park too if we put parking benches in there. There's also a garbage can has been proposed when there's one that exists 20 feet away across the grass. That would require even more maintenance, and so I'm really confused about why we would add another garbage can when there's one already there. I would like to see our landscaping restored to what it was. It's been ignored, and I understand that money is short all the way around, but if we could please have some of those plantings reinstated and green up the space more, it would be great. That's been an activist neighborhood. We really feel like we benefit the downtown area and we make the ring neighborhood strong. I apologize, I'm very nervous. I've got such a beautifully written letter that I shared with Isaac. Can I share it with you? Can I pass it out before I sit down?
Sure.
Is that allowed?
Yes, you can pass it forward, and they'll pass it through. That'd be fine. Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to address the board? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment at this time. Before we move on to regular business, I'd like to recognize the fact that we have 2 brand-new members to the DDA board that are joining us tonight. One being Director Catherine Stoya, sitting over to my right. And the second is the gentleman to my right, Mr. Thomas Marcus, who happens to also be our new city manager. So I wanted to acknowledge them. Mr. Marcus, I don't know if you have any comments, or would you like to address
I'm
the
glad
board?
to be here. I'm looking forward to the challenges of the community. I think there's great opportunities to continue to improve. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'll move on to regular business and approval of the meeting and the minutes. And I'll have to pull up the date here. I think this is April 29th, 2026. Okay. Okay, I have a motion by Director Dubuck. Second by Director Brown. Any changes or adjustments to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
And the motion passes.
Mr. Chair, for the minutes, the abstention was who?
Mr. Marcus.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is expense items. This, I don't have an attachment on this, so,
No, there was no attachments in.
okay.
We'll take this on faith.
Mr. Chair, I can clarify. At the April 29th meeting, we did for the prior month, so we are behind getting this to you. So we will circulate it electronically and include it in the next package. I apologize.
Okay, yep, we can double up next month, that'd be fine. Okay. If they're not done, we'll move on to regular business. Center Street Parker structure. Mr. Kramer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll start this. Also in the audience, we have the city attorney who may have some additional comments to share, which I think would be helpful to provide some context. But to start us off, that we're dealing with a situation now where the Center Street structure, the older portion of it, which dates to the 1970s, has gotten to a point where we can't continue to have public access to it. There's issues with safety, with the building condition. Already the top 2 floors have had to be closed off. And it's gotten to the point where we're coming forward after this most recent winter with the freeze-thaw cycle that impacted the garage, that we're identifying the need for demolition. So I can tell you, having been in the meeting with city staff, that several different options were looked at for how to fund the demolition. For those who were on this board 2 years ago, you may recall a resolution that was passed of $600,000 to do the demolition at that time, only to have, after the RFP process went through, to have that pulled back. So, and we continue to contend that the cost estimates for the demolition are between $570,000 and $1.6 million. And on that lower end, that we continue to have one of the bidders who's willing to assist with this. So at that point, I think it might be prudent for me to stop and ask if the city attorney has anything to add related to the condition of the deck that he might want to share with the board. Is that okay?
Good evening. So I did attend the infrastructure meeting that some of you were at and gave a detailed explanation. At this point, the structure has to come down. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just how we do that and what the future holds for that site. So really, one of the options was resurrected 2 years ago. This board had made an official motion to offer to pay for the demolition, and it was simply asked if the board was willing to reconsider resurrecting that potential offer in partnership and moving forward. Given the nature of that, we need to move rather quickly with urgency, given the nature of the continued deterioration of that particular structure. We have already placed Etkin on notice that we're going to be removing those reserved parking signs next Tuesday. So we think that will create the appropriate space and necessary capacity that's needed in the newer portion of the structure to alleviate the confusion, because I think a public member said it correct, the first couple of floors seem to be reserved specifically. So we're bringing them within their agreement to reserve spaces on a first come, first serve that we do for any other company that we contract with to provide parking in our structures, so that'll be consistent. Their agreement does not provide for specific reserved spaces, so we've placed them on notice. We're going to be removing those signs, and after that, we will be closing the old portion down following that, and then that will then create fluctuation of parking from the old structure to the new structure, which, based on the numbers that we've received from our partners with our parking operator, system operator for the decks, there appears that there should be plenty of capacity, especially when we remove those signs and people aren't driving up to the upper floors to find unreserved spots on those upper floors. So with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions.
I was just going to ask Mr. Grunfalsi, if you don't mind, with your permission, just to stick around, because I do know we have a couple of members on the board here who want to address this specific item, and they may have some questions for you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could, before we get to that, could I continue with some of the items in the memo to assist the board?
Sure.
Thank you. So I do want to highlight among the backup that was included in the packet, there's a chart of Royal Oak parking garage visits 2019 to 2025. And there's a really pronounced trend here that I think it's worth taking a look at. And by the way, this comes from our own data from Placer AI. It's the place-based analytics data from cell phones. And we can see in the 11-mile garage and the new portion of the Center Street garage, really from 2020 to current, just the use is going straight up. But at the same time, we saw declining usage at the older portion of the Center Street garage and also the Lafayette South garage. So, the customers are voting with their feet or with their wheels, however you might put it. And, they have places they prefer to park, but places they less prefer to park. So we're having this discussion in the context that there's declining usage of the Center Street garage, the older portion of the Center Street garage. And with the other garages, that certain enhancements that have recently been made with lighting and otherwise have made them more attractive. So, and I also included in the packet Royal Oak parking garage visits for the last 6 months. That's a little bit more diverse of a trend, but you can still see how the different garages are performing. And I point out that the older garage has seen declining participation or usage since December 2025. And I won't get into every chart, but the last thing that I'll point out before we open it up for discussion is at the end of the memo, we do include from a business perspective several points for the board to consider. And I won't read them word for word, but I will summarize that we continue as of June 30th last year, June 30th this year, I apologize, to have $3.5 million of parking system revenue bonds, which are still payable. And the chart related to the payback is the last page of the memo. Additionally, there's discussion about installation of parking gates. However that settles, which potentially could be generating revenue, enhanced revenue for DDA, and may touch on that first obligation that I mentioned. Third, the reserve spaces, we've already covered it, so I won't repeat it, but having general spaces that can turn over regularly will promote increased usage and increased revenue. Demolition of the structure will lead to a net reduction in spaces. Potentially, if we had some option for people to park there in the future, that could generate revenue, but I know that's an active discussion item. And then the other 3 points, I'll let you read them. Oh, I will point out point 6, the retail incubator, which is currently being used by a school group. The DDA was involved in building that out, and were we able to do some kind of program-related work out of that space, potentially that generates revenue that would further defray. And last but not least, any future redevelopment, if there was a redevelopment agreement that dealt with TIF, that we potentially could recoup some of the $600,000 that's being asked of us to put out. With that, that's my report.
Okay. I do know there's probably going to be some discussion here, so who wants to start us out, Mr. Dubuck?
Thank you. So yeah, just a little bit of a summary. We had a pretty robust conversation in the infrastructure subcommittee about this proposal. I think we did all recognize that we've previously at this table discussed leaning into help with the demolition of the old portion of the Center Street deck should the time come. I think it's universally recognized that that deck has past its useful life. It's 55 years old, would cost way more to maintain and repair than to bring it down and build new. So we're all on board with that, with supporting the project. It looks like what is before us today is really a question of putting aside the $600,000, up to $600,000 for that demo. I assume if the bid's coming higher than that, we'd have to revisit it if we move forward that direction. But also, I think an important piece of this is this kind of being the beginning of a partnership with the city about the future of that site. So we lean on the demo. There is another resolution before us that would direct our executive director to work with the city manager or city staff on an RFP for that site. The other piece that I think we all recognize is worth doing, because even if we get an RFP, if we get a developer, if we get a bid that we like and the city likes, 2 to 3 years optimistically before a shovel's in the ground. So demoing that deck would be phase 1, ideally phase 2, which I think would come forward at a future date, would be, yes, installing a surface lot there, which is in front of us, just the information, 140 to 150 spaces. I don't think the intent of infrastructure committee is that that would be permanent, but in the interim, until we get a new development on that site, that would ideally replace that parking and then add parking for whatever the development demands, but that's a conversation for a future day. I think those are the major parts of our conversation. I think also what's worth noting is the resolutions proposed today, none of them, other than authorizing the up to $600,000, are binding. So entering into the RFP is directing staff to work with city staff on that RFP for the development of the site, and I think that's going to be a pretty in-depth conversation between us and the city. So just wanted to add a little bit of context about the conversation we had. I think those are the high points, Mr. Chair.
Yes, absolutely. That was my understanding, and I'm pleased with the way that Mr. Kremer put this together in terms of the 3 separate resolutions here. And I think they are, for where we are at today, I think these are reasonable and make a lot of sense.
Sorry, I just have one more question of clarification for Mr. Kremer. So in this financial breakdown that was mentioned during public comment that mentions the $1 million for gate entry systems, my reading of this is we're looking at dollars on hand that were kind of earmarked for something like that and saying that's a potential place to draw from to fulfill the need for the demolition and potential future building of this new surface lot. Is that accurate?
Yes, I'll speak to that, but also ask the city attorney to clarify if I have a detail wrong. a reference was made by the director about current dollars. There's actually a $1 million line item in the capital improvement plan, but that doesn't correlate with a physical dollar. That's part of the almost, I believe, $46 million of capital improvement requests. And just apples to apples, I believe we had $26 million of capital improvement spending in the last fiscal year. So there's an enormous amount of requests and a limited number of dollars to distribute for those. So just because you see $1 million of capital improvement plan funding for the gated system, it does not mean that those dollars are sitting in the city coffers and could be spent on that today or tomorrow. City Attorney, do I have that right?
I don't know if I could really answer that.
Okay.
So is the purpose of this sources and uses section to kind of give us an apples to apples comparison of the amount of dollars that we would be dedicating toward this project versus other potential things? Is that?
So really, every piece of the memo ties together, including the 7 points at the end about revenue sources, how we might recoup our upfront money. But were we to go ahead, for instance, and demo for the $600,000, and then we have an approximate $600,000 for pavement, sources and uses suggest that some may come from the DDA, some may come from other sources, and we just have to explore those options.
Gotcha. Thank you.
If I may,
Please.
I always think of stuff after I've said things.
No, that's fine.
I forgot to say this. We did reach out to the lowest qualified bidder at the time that we received bids just over a year ago. They are capable, interested, willing, and able to proceed very soon. With that, they did indicate, based on the price of diesel where it's at now compared to a year ago, and some of the other costs associated with recycling and recycling, like the concrete and the steel and the structures, that the slight inflationary increase would drive the price currently to $630,000. So we as staff found that extremely reasonable given the operational challenges with price increases across the board with certain things. So the city certainly could find capacity to fund that additional $30,000. We could use some leverage some different funds. So just so you're all aware, the $6,000, if you consider that, $600,000 if you consider that, wouldn't cover the total cost, but the city would certainly step up to the other costs. With regard to paving the lot for future, while the city obviously would support that, that would come at a cost almost equal to the cost of demolition, just so everybody's aware. With the understanding, though, that doesn't necessarily increase, although it would increase parking capacity, it wouldn't increase parking revenues because all that is run through the new structure. To access that lot would have to go through the structure. So it would be the same usage that you would see today. So it really wouldn't pay for itself given the increased cost. Not that it's a bad idea, that it would be great to have that extra capacity in the interim, because as Commissioner DeBuck did say, or Director DeBuck did say, it would probably be 2 to 3 years before we saw any redevelopment actually come forward with that site. So just a little added information.
Thank you, Mr. Gojowski. Yeah.
Thank you.
So a couple comments that I probably want to make here, just to go on what the last two gentlemen have said. The 600,000, I mean, we seriously have to look at this. This money was dedicated, I want to say 3 years ago, if not more. And the fact that we dedicated that amount of money at that time and we're still being asked by the contractor to pay that amount of money today is pretty amazing. I mean, seriously pretty amazing that we can do that. And then to go back to the Director DeBuck's thing, I had the opportunity to sit in on a parking steering committee meeting with the city attorney today, and a number of commissioners and so forth. And what I wanted to reiterate is that the stage that committee is at right now, they haven't even decided what kind of gate system they're going to even use here. Whether it's going to be gateless or whether it's going to be gated and so forth and so forth. And one of the things that the consultants pointed out to us was that the pricing range on some of these systems were massive amount of differences. Just how much technology do you want to put into it, and so forth and so forth. So, yeah, I guess we can look at available funding, but I'm guessing my thought process is that it's somewhat premature at this time. I mean, it's good to look ahead, but it's a little bit premature at this time, not even knowing where this is gonna be or where this is gonna come from or so forth. So, that being said, again, I'm okay with the resolutions. Was there anybody else that wanted to address this issue?
Yeah, I just had some questions, so.
Yeah, Director Dunstan.
And I'm working off my iPhone because my mouse isn't working, so if someone from IT is watching, I think a couple double A's will do the trick. But for now, I'll just go off the phone. But is the intent to put a surface lot there at this point?
Oh, pass that down.
Given the estimated cost by your engineer to actually pave that and stripe it, we haven't identified from a city perspective a funding source that would be able to pay for that.
I'm sorry.
Did you catch that?
No, I didn't.
So, given the associated cost estimates from our city engineers to pave and stripe that, to create that parking capacity in the meantime, we haven't identified a funding source to be able to fund that because it's another $600,000 estimate to actually blacktop it and put striping and reopen it to access it through the current new Center Street parking structure. Again, great idea. There might be other alternatives we could try to consider. Right now, the importance is getting it down. As far as what the future looks like, you know, we're not sure yet. We don't have the funding to pay for restriping it or repaving it at the time. Absent something coming out of, like, a developer may be interested in it, and there could be some funding mechanisms there. But I think the bigger interest is the potential future partnership of a developer may drive a conversation of recouping some of this money that the DDA is potentially offering or considering to offer to help with the demolition. So, unknown at this point is the best answer I can give you, based on the fact we don't have funding.
And then has the contractor given any idea of a time frame, like a start date? I mean, you said you're, okay, like how long does he feel it will take to?
Well, we actually have had discussions about them starting within the month or two, which would be helpful because having to demo the site, they will have to secure it with fencing. So one of the options we're hoping to do is leverage that to our advantage to actually fence off that entire area so it's less of an attractive nuisance in the meantime before they can demo the site. But it's my understanding, I didn't talk to them, a staff member did, they could move within the next month or two fairly quickly. So I think that's good news, and especially if they're willing to install the fencing sooner, that will go a long ways to coordinating off that, that structure from trespassers.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. LaGrasso.
My concern is if there's not a plan, once that debt comes down, what's there? A dirt lot. I think that given the high amount of traffic, the frequent programming that is done in that space, I really believe a plan should be in the works. I mean, I fully support bringing this portion of the deck down. It's a safety risks, and that's our number one priority, is to make sure we have safe spaces. But I also think that what's the alternative if a surface lot is not there? Time will go by quick, and 2 or 3 years will elapse. And if there's not something there, I think that will be more of a problem.
Thank you. I tend to want to agree with Mr. LaGrasso on this, and I think we can discuss this probably at an infrastructure committee meeting, but I think we need to look at this differently and maybe possibly a different perspective as the importance of the surface lot, as Director LaGrasso has talked about, and the DDA considering looking for funding to get that accomplished. And if we end up short end on the prospect of not having the funding for the gated, that we can't do it all. And I'm sure the city knows that we can't do it all. So where's the priority here in terms of this? And I think he makes a good point. We can't just have a dirt lot there. We have to work hard to get towards that portion. So I have two people. I have three actually. Go ahead, Director Brown.
Thank you. I didn't expect to get called first, so. Nothing over here is working. Here we go. I'm not on the infrastructure committee, so I wanted to toss out there, if we don't necessarily need those spaces that an expensive lot would provide, it might be a nice opportunity to, for a lot less money, develop a green space and a pathway to cover us for a few years until we have some sort of development in place. Just a thought.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just, our standard demolition requirements are that after the lot is scraped clean, that topsoil and it's seeded. So that is, and I believe that is in our RFP, that was a requirement. So at least for the immediate future, it would potentially be growing grass after it's topsoiled and seeded.
Okay. Mr. Yasmick, you were next.
Inside joke, maybe we're back to gateless. I, of course, support the expenditure to tear down the parking structure. We were persuaded a couple years ago that this was an important thing to do, and we passed a resolution to do just that. So certainly, it sounds like things haven't gotten better. The elevators haven't worked. I don't think they were working back then when we considered this, so that may or may not be a reason that that portion of the structure has been used to a lesser extent. I would approach it a little differently. I think probably the easy part is saying, yes, we have to tear it down and we can allocate the $600,000. The more challenging part is how do we expeditiously move a plan forward for what comes next. And I think back to what the DDA did very effectively on 696 with that project. We formed a committee, and I think, and although the RFP, and I don't know how legally we are required to do the RFP, I think nothing happened when we tried to do an RFP at the 696 site, but then we just let it be known that this parcel was open for sale or lease, and that's when a committee of the DDA vetted several applicants who wanted to present their concepts in behind closed doors because they don't want other people, pilfering their ideas. So, and that was an effective mechanism. We met with people, we presented to the board, ultimately to the commission, and Kyle said okay. So that's how the Griffin happened. So I see a similar opportunity here to move very efficiently if we were to suggest to the commission that we approach it that way, that we, on the DDA level, we knock it down, we form a committee, we let it be known that this parcel is available for development. We get some people behind closed doors, consider the best opportunities for us, what we want as a downtown, what we're looking for, and then present it to the board and ultimately the commission. the same track that we did back then. I think that would be a very effective way to address all these concerns about, it's the status of it after it's torn down, how quickly can we get somebody to move on it, and certainly part of the discussions with any potential developer is, of course, you're going to repay us for what we've already done, what you would have had to do, tear down this structure if we didn't do it. So I think that maybe is a path that we should consider when approving this this resolution.
Okay.
Or commitment of money to do this, to do what needs to be done.
All right, Director DeBuck, I'll give you the last word here, and then we're going to talk about these resolutions.
Sure. No, I appreciate all those concerns. I think we got the cart a little bit before the horse here, because one, we don't own that property.
I was just going to, I actually just bring that up.
Yeah, that makes it very different than the sink property. But what are we being asked to do is something we committed to do, which is tear it down, which we all agree we need to do. Now, I am fully comfortable with, because the next resolution is directing our staff to work with city staff on the RFP. I would think our buying in with the demolition should guarantee that we are a partner in this RFP process, right? So I think that the resolution should dictate, pending formal agreement with the city, that we will be a partner in crafting and creating this RFP process, or however the city and we decide to go about it. But I don't think we're in a position to dictate what process to use, but we should be an equal partner in that conversation. Because certainly, even after this demolition, there will be more asked of us, even though we don't own that property, but we and the city have equal stake in what happens with this. As far as the parking to come after, I think we agreed on the infrastructure committee that that's pretty important for our downtown, is to replace that lost parking in the interim. And I think we don't need to give direction on that, because we'd have to get bids and everything on that. But I think there is probably a majority of us that agree, at least based on the conversation in that committee. If there was an argument to be made the parking's not necessary, I'm willing to hear that out. But the issue before us right now is, do we want to invest this $600,000 in the immediate demolition, which gets this whole process rolling, because it actually makes that space developable. And I would like to include that our investment in that demolition is contingent on a formal agreement with the city that will be a partner in developing the RFP development process.
Is that your motion?
So I will move for that, for the first, is that the first resolution?
Yes.
With the first resolution, with that caveat, that our 600, no, that's the second resolution. Our 600,000 contingent on a formal agreement with the city that we are going to be a partner in the crafting of either the RFP or the outreach strategy for the development of that property. So that's just the second resolution here.
Second. I'll second that.
Okay, as of right now, I have a motion by Director DeBuck, second by Director Dunstan. Yes.
I acknowledge that I'm not as eloquent as Director DeBuck, but that's, I think, essentially what I was trying to say. I wasn't like saying we're dictating that has to be how it happens, suggesting that we would be in a position to do that as part of this approval process. So I listen and learn.
I think the resolution kind of leans towards that directly as we move forward in the overall project. Okay, anybody have any other comments regarding this item? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So we have 3 resolutions before us. We can handle these individually or all at one.
So my motion is pretty much a mix of the first and second, that we approve the up to 600,000 contingent on a formal agreement with the city that the DDA will be a partner in the crafting of the RFP development process. Okay, so it's kind of a mix of the first 2.
Was it your intent also to include the third resolution in your?
I was just going to do it next after we take this vote, in case there's conversation about this. I didn't want to get caught
I just want to be clear for the board so they understand.
In procedural soup, so I just wanted to get this one out of the way.
Exactly, okay. So we're going to talk about resolution number 1 and 2 right now? on your motion?
My motion is to approve the up to 600,000 for the demolition contingent on a formal agreement with the city that we are included in the crafting of the RFP for the development of that property.
Okay,
So it's a mix of the first two.
gotcha. Okay, and you're good with that, Mr. Dunstan?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think we're clear now. If there's no further discussion, I will call for the
I have a
vote.
comment.
Yes.
I need further clarification on what contingent means.
So, all right, so I would say that means that once there's an agreement that the city is going to co-create that RFP with the DDA, once that's written and agreed to, then we'll release these funds for the
But we
demolition.
may not do an RFP.
Right, so co-creating of that process. That I want to formalize that the DDA is an equal partner in that process with this investment.
The process to do what?
To seek out a developer or a proposal for that, whether it is an RFP or interviews with individual developers or presentations from individual developers. And that upon, selection.
So there's no prescribed solution. We're going at this as whatever we mutually agree to.
That we would have to mutually agree to that process, yes.
I think that's a good way to put it, Mr. Marcus. I think I think you understand the intent here. The intent is that if the DDA is going to make this substantial investment into this project, that they obviously want to have some input into the selection process for a developer that will eventually develop this property. I think that's what the intent is here.
I'm trying to avoid being in an awkward position with.
Too late.
Too late.
With the city commission that I'm trying to formulate a relationship with.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, and I think I would say publicly that knowing the commission to the extent I know the commission now, I think that would be a cooperative venture, as long as that can evolve. I don't think we can just go and say we're going to do an RFP. We're not just going to go and say we're just going to solicit proposals. I think there has to be some getting together and having a mutual exchange, flesh out the ideas, and I would hope that that would be the normal approach to how we would do just about everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
It should be.
I'm just saying, I would hope that would be the approach that we would take. And
So yours is more about the process.
yeah,
I think.
because I think that we all need to have a lot more conversation about this. I think the points that the city attorney makes, that this property is not going to retire any investment we make in building another parking lot, because it's just offsetting existing spaces we currently have. I think that, I think everybody needs to take some time with this. We don't need to rush necessarily the redevelopment, but at the same time, I think we need to go out and flesh out what the market will support. I've been through this process so many times that we don't know everything about where this could lead us to. And so I don't want to create an image that we're holding this all up based on rushing to a contingent relationship that we haven't really fleshed out. That's my
Agreed. I guess it's in previous developments where the DDA has been asked for investment and partnership with the city, there is clear role for the DDA, not just a handshake like, oh yeah, we'll take your input. Like I'm saying, if we're kicking this thing off by investing 600,000 plus for the demolition of the property, with inevitably more asks coming after that we're formalizing our role up front. Because right now we don't have any rights to the property or control over the development. So if we're investing the 600,000 in the demolition, which is the right thing to do one way or the other, I would like a guarantee, a formal agreement that the DDA has a formal role in the creation of that process and the progress of any development to come on that site.
Okay, I think it'd be important for Mr. Grotowski, if he wanted to chime in now, would be a good time.
And of course, as Director DeBuck mentioned, this is a city lot. Obviously, it's not unappreciative of the role of the DDA and the contribution sought for that. I view this as a partnership. Obviously, as a city lot, the city commission has substantial interest, a substantial wish list of what a potential development could look like. But I see that as a partnership in line with what we've kind of done with our parking system and the partnership we created with that steering committee that we've worked on collaboratively to drive that process of where we are today and what the future of the structures looks like. So, but my concern is this, based on what I'm hearing from the motion, that funds aren't released until we get to some sort of formal agreement, makes me worried that we need time to vet that out of what that partnership looks like, whereas we need to be able to move forward with the demolition sooner rather than later. And if the funds are held up, that could be problematic moving forward with the demolition and paying for the contractor to do that. I'm certain that the commission would be open for a collaborative effort with regard to the potential redevelopment in partnership with the DDA. I don't know what that looks like. Certainly, that could take many forms and shapes, especially giving the offer of funding to tear that down. At this point, I think it does deserve a seat at the table from the DDA. But at the same time, I'm wary of the way that the conversation's gone about that it's tied to a formal agreement to solidify that and the timing and the need to get the funding to tear that down. So if that's the case, and again, the commission definitely wants a seat at that table as well to come up with vision consistent with the master plan that I assume all of you would want consistent with the master plan. So just food for thought. I'm not sure what that looks like or whether or not we can move that fast to get a formal agreement. But I certainly suspect that that is not objectionable. I can't speak for the commission, but certainly it deserves further discussion maybe by the board.
Yeah, I think it's probably, would be well considered by the commission. The concern is we don't own the lot, we don't own the deck, we are taking on this cost. The DDA is not a piggy bank, so we want to be an equal partner in this process, and I feel like that should be formalized.
And I'll just say that, ironically enough, the DDA started the parking committee that is steering committee that you referred to that's led to all these good things. So we've worked collaboratively in the past very effectively. At least in my, and I interpreted Director DeBuck's comments the same way. We just want to help. We want to be a part of it. And the formal agreement could be, yeah, we'll work with the DDA. I mean, I don't think we need much more formality than that. Like the parking committee, it was a collaborative effort, and we're making good progress. I think that's all it is. So I don't think we should be bogged down by, concern that we're going to delay anything. I can't imagine that's going to delay funds, the expenditure of funds, because we can't reach an agreement with the city commission. I mean, ultimately, they are the commission. We're trying to help, and I think we're uniquely positioned to help because we're downtown. We have businesses. We should help. It makes sense, and I.
Chair, if I could offer, I did pick up on a piece of language from the attorney. I believe the direct quote was a collaborative effort for redevelopment in partnership with the DDA. Is one possibility here we could just request that in the form of a letter? Would that constitute a sufficient agreement?
Is that a question?
I guess it's the will of the board. I mean, if the board it feels comfortable with that type of a situation, I don't know whether what I'm trying to do is figure out the time frame, and how I'm supposed to handle this motion and
Yes.
so forth in this, and are we gonna hold up the resolution and wait for the letter, or are we willing to release some of the funds? And I don't mean release some of the funds by paying, but authorize some of the funding at this current meeting without having any type of,
The only way I think that this doesn't go forward without any hurdles at all is if the commission was to say, no, the DDA is over here and we're just gonna handle it all ourselves. They're not gonna say that, but that's the only way that this wouldn't work. So I think Director DeBuck's motion is fine. And if there is a problem, it's 2 months away, we can come back, but there's not gonna be a problem. It's just, I think we're digging too deep.
yes, sir.
Formal agreement to me,
That's where I was going with this too.
we have formal agreement here and we have understanding here.
Yeah, that's where the difference is.
And I would recommend collaboration. I would recommend working together on this to the commission. And as the attorney says, it's their final decision, but formal agreement is beyond a letter. I think the executive director's point is well made. I think we could formulate a letter with the executive director, and I think that it would address those things. Formal agreement's gonna take time. You have to review back and forth.
I don't understand it that way, but if we substitute letter of agreement for formal agreement.
Memorandum of understanding.
Letter of understanding, yeah.
There's one of the resolutions that's drafted before us is to direct our executive director to work with the city manager and the mayor and the commission on the development of an RFP. But he's the only one we can give direction to. That doesn't mean that they have to listen to his input. You know what I mean? There's separate legal entities. So he can do what we've told him to do, but that doesn't mean that it's, and I don't mean to be cynical. I know them all. They want to work with us.
Yes.
I'm just saying, if we're putting in 600,000, I would like for there to be some authority on our end with the future of this development. So that's just a memorandum of understanding. Does that work? Like, is that too formal?
That's what I was trying to get at was here, could we just revise this resolution to simply say that the Downtown Development Authority approves up to 600,000 from the reserve fund to go towards the demolition of the Center C structure based upon a letter of understanding with the City Commission that the DDA will be involved in the process.
Well,
I
have another suggestion. You could ask for that in the approving authorization of this project to go forward is subject to the city staff working with the staff and the two boards together. I think they can do that through motion, through resolution, which is probably as meaningful as anything else.
Either a resolution or motion or something, but I think what Director Yesmick said earlier here is, I almost getting to the point now where I'm thinking we're thinking too much about this. I think we have a commitment from our city manager, we have a commitment from our city attorney, that some form of agreement or understanding will come forth in the near future, which will allow us to move forward with approving the expenditure of these funds. Director Van Ness.
I have nothing to add to this. I do have to leave to get to another obligation. I just didn't want anybody to think I'm angry or bored. Conversation.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
I would say that I think the city attorney and myself understand what the executive director and what you're saying about this, and I think we can craft something that will satisfy your concerns about your involvement, your engagement, and your collaboration, that we will ask the commission in moving forward to consider in a motion.
Okay.
Would that satisfy?
Perfect.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, just to assist you on a process issue, that we do have a motion and a second before you. There was some discussion about the language of that motion. So in the event we don't want to go ahead with contingent on a formal agreement language, the action for the board to take would be to vote no on that motion. And then you're open to approve a motion with whatever alternate language you want. That's my understanding.
So is the language you're proposing the adoption of a letter from the commission? Like,
or a
I
motion,
think a
or,
motion would establish the parameters that you're looking for
yes,
in their approval.
yes. So as an amendment to that, this motion, would that be acceptable then?
Yeah.
Contingent on action on a formal vote of the commission acknowledging the DDA's role in this process.
In collaborating with them.
All right. So I'll move to amend my motion to replace contingent on formal agreement with contingent on a formal vote of the city commission recognizing the DDA's role in this process. That's a motion
he's
to amend.
amending his motion. I would need Director Dunstan to,
Anybody can
You're really
second the
counting on this,
amendment.
aren't you? Yeah, I will, I'm agreeable to that.
okay. Okay,
You got to vote on the amendment.
okay, yes. So we're not, just on the amendment, we're not voting on the original motion.
We're voting to amend the original motion.
We're voting to amend the original motion. Is everybody clear? Comments? None? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes. Now, do we have to go back to the original motion, I
The
believe?
amended motion, now that it's amended.
Okay, so we're now, I guess I need some clarification on this. Are we asking for a new motion?
We voted to amend the original motion, and with that amendment passed, so now we just have to pass the amended motion.
Okay.
The motion
Does
as
that
amended.
need a motion and another motion and another second?
It's already on the table.
It does not.
It's already on the table, yeah.
It's already on the table. Okay. Then, if there's nothing else, I will call for a vote on the amended motion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes. Okay. Anything else on this subject?
I'll move for the third resolution presented regarding
Okay.
the space.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second by Director Dunstan. Motion by Director Dubois. Any discussion on this resolution?
I'd love to talk about it.
Yes.
Okay, so, and Kyle knows, this is a space that I never wanted to see in that garage that ended up being in that garage. And at the time, it cost us money. It cost us money to have to redraw plans. It cost us 40 to 50 parking spots. And despite the recommendations from a couple very successful retailers on the board at the time, Gary Baglio at Pronto and Lori London at Right Impressions, that it would not be a good space for retail, it went ahead. There was basically no choice. Either we'd get the space or there'd be no garage. And if there was no garage, there'd be no Etkin building. And Etkin was really the very first group to come into town, bought our first lot. So the problem I have right now with the garage is a number of things. One, there was rumors at one point DPS was going to move into this garage because there's not enough room in this brand new building for all the departments. Then I know that voting machines were stored in that space, and this is after the DDA white boxed that space well into six figures. And now it's my understanding that the Royal Oak High School robotics team is using that space. And I have a huge problem representing the businesses and residents in downtown paying almost $850,000 a year towards the bond for that garage and not being able to use that garage, not being able to use that space. And having that space used by a high school, it was not ever the intent. And I think if residents and businesses understood that downtown, they would be not very happy. And that was never the intent. I would like to see the DDA take that space, and I'd like to see our executive director see what he could do as far as possibly turning that incubator space. Our executive director mentioned in the notes that at one time we had a lease, but I don't remember ever having a lease for that space.
Mr. Chair, just as a point of information, I can clarify that there is an existing lease that expired in 2023.
Well, I certainly don't remember that at all. But I guess we signed a lease to store voting machines. But I see no reason why the DDA shouldn't have control of that space, and I feel very strongly about it. And at the very least, it should have been used as a community area for whatever. But I am feel very strong about the DDA getting that space. And I almost, speaking of contingencies, wanted to make that a contingency for the $600,000. But I would really like to see the city commission allow us to use that space and with the same terms that they're offering to the robotics team from the high school. Anyhow, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, comments? I guess I have one question for Mr. Kremer. Why, I also don't remember a lease. I'm not saying that there wasn't. I don't remember one. I don't remember us ever budgeting any money for a lease at that location. And I guess my question would be is, we own the building, the DDA owns that portion of the building, why would we be paying the city a lease?
I feel an obligation to report on the facts. I want to be clear, to the best of my recollection, I did see a lease that expired in 2023, but I'd like to request an opportunity to follow up to be able to include that with the record of this meeting, but I will need some time to try to find that.
Okay.
But the best of my recollection, Mr. Chair, is that a lease was struck.
Okay. Okay, so there, I'm sorry, Mr. Dunstan.
I just want to point out that is owned by the city. That is city space. Okay, and never, whether we had a lease or not, and I don't think we did, we never had any ownership of that space, just to be clear.
But we pay the bond on the building.
We pay $850,000 a year, which is approximately half of the bond, the yearly bond. There's nothing in the covenant either of the bond, because I worked on that with Robert Schwartz from Dixon Wright, I believe, on that covenant, and there's nothing in there that would stop us from proceeding in this way. It didn't stop a robotics team, it shouldn't stop us.
Okay, so the current resolution that's before us simply says for the, authorize the executive director to explore renewing the lease with the city commission for that space. So if there's no objection to simply doing that, then I would ask, I don't think we have a motion on the table for this one, do we?
We do.
We do, okay. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Mr. DeBuck, and then Mr. Dunstan.
Thank you, okay. So, any further discussion, or anybody want to put their 2 cents in on this portion? Okay, I'm seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes. Okay, let's move on. Next item, Walk Your Wheels replacement signage. Mr. Kremer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully this will be a bit of a palate cleanser for you. Quick and easy one. And by the way, thank you, City Attorney, for sitting through, and thank you for the last several months as he heads out the door. It's been a big job. So, Walk Your Wheels. So, good news here is Director Dunstan brought forward a recommendation or a request to look into something within the last month, and I was very pleased to be able to quickly follow up on it. And as things exist right now, the parking enforcement signs are bolted to our light posts, which is not the most attractive. And additionally, the biking and sidewalk enforcement signs, and not the most attractive and not really visible either. So what we're bringing forward before you is a more kind of user-friendly, a little bit of a softer messaging. It's actually an example taken from the past downtown I worked with in Princeton, New Jersey. where we're asking people to walk their wheels. I reached out to the chief of police and discussed this with him, and he had a friendly suggestion that we should include e-bikes and e-scooters, which made a lot of sense. So that is reflected in the final design that we brought forward to you. Relatively low cost. In fact, I could do it administratively, but I wanted to bring it before the board. We've already brought it to the Infrastructure Committee, who's supportive, to let you know that we do want to act quickly, when recommendations are brought forward, and we'd ask for your support.
Questions for staff? Comments? Mr. DeBuck.
Sorry, I don't mean to be talking this much. One question, Mr. Kramer. When we just discussed this at, I think, infrastructure, weren't we told that the sign had to cite the ordinance number?
That was discussed in follow-up, though it was not a requirement. So,
great.
Yes.
This is wonderful because I know the cycling enthusiasts hated the circle with the red line through it.
Yes. In fact, you'll see, Director, in the example provided there, what was our jumping off point is we did do the bicycle cutout in Princeton, and that's what gave birth to the more user-friendly show me, don't tell me kind of approach. Yeah. That's positive and upbeat, and hopefully people see it and recognize it. The other big change I should mention is we're putting it in the sight of traffic, so at the corners, rather than sticking it to the side where no one sees it. So if you're on a bike, you'll see the sign asking you to not be riding it. So hopefully that'll help too.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Director DeBuck, second by Director Dunstan.
And I just want to thank our executive director for this. It's different from what I had presented, but it's a way better way to go about it. And I actually saw in a neighboring city, somebody had a good idea in Birmingham. They do the same thing. And I saw Mother's Day, I saw these on the sidewalk, and I said, this is the way we should do it. And then the next day I had an email from our executive director, and I was like, God, this is perfect. So yeah, I'm excited about this because where I sit on Main Street, it's very narrow with all the sidewalk cafes right now, and there's a lot of bike riding, there's a lot of scooter riding. So I think this is good to put out there, and I think it's much more visible and friendly to do it in this way.
Okay. Dr. Logasso, do you have anything? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So on the resolution, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes.
Thank you.
Item C, Main Street Now Conference.
Great. So, Mr. Chair, pleased to report we spoke with both of the committees on this and the next two items, and I'd really like, in the interest of time, but also for kind of the robustness of discussion, for the board to kind of consider all of them together. But to start off, the Main Street Now Conference is the leading gathering of downtown professionals each year, held at different locations throughout the U.S. Most recently in April, it was in Tulsa, and we sent 4 members to attend it. Previously, we had one person attend each of the 4 previous conferences in different years, usually only staff. So this was the first year that a board member was able to attend, Director Brown. We had a city commissioner attend, and we also had a student attend with us. So that was very positive. But what I've laid out in some detail in this memo is the historical data about what we've spent on travel, training, scholarships that have been available to us from Main Street, Oakland County that we've utilized, but many that we have not. And I went year by year to show you how all of this impacted the work of the organization and different things that were included in different documents about why or whether we should go, how it impacted our accreditation with Main Street America, et cetera. And I think the real takeaway for me is that we left money on the table to the tune of close to $10,000 in scholarships to attend this conference. And no criticism meant, but it was a missed opportunity for training and growing our capacity and strengthening the organization. So with that, before you, we do have resolutions requesting me to keep a list of people interested in attending the conference in Detroit next year from May 3rd to 5th. Requesting me to follow the new travel and training policy. That'll be the next item on the agenda to recommend people to send. And last but not least, to keep track of early bird registration deadlines where we have a lower rate, and to maximize all financial support received from Main Street Oakland County and Main Street America. And with that, we'd ask for your support.
Motion by Director Marcus.
Second.
Supported by Director Brown. Any questions for staff? Comments? Director Yazbek.
I especially like the part, and education's wonderful, knowledge is power, but the 2019 Seattle conference, I don't know if either of you were there. I like the report that Mr. whoever was our representative there talks about rock your downtown with community concerts. I think that's something we're very focused on right now, and unlocking the potential of public spaces. I think that supports, all of that supports what we're doing on 5th Street. So I found that very, very interesting.
Director Dawson.
And I just want to mention too that part of the executive director's job description includes being involved in training, so I think this is more than appropriate.
Anybody else? Okay. Okay, so we have a motion on the table, and I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And those motions pass. Okay.
As a point of personal privilege, I'd like to thank Mr. Marcus for your first resolution on the board.
Yeah. Okay, DDA travel and training policy.
Excellent. So in the spirit of moving through things, Mr. Chair, we have outlined a policy. This gets into how we deal with different scenarios, such as if a city commissioner would like to pay, whether the travel or training is a paid or a free opportunity. How do we handle a situation if all of the DDA staff want to attend? And that explanation is that the preparation prior to it and being available during, which might allow, for instance, both myself and Deputy Director, I just learned how to say your last name today, and I've now forgotten. Kalugar.
Kaluger.
Kaluger. I almost need to say that 3 more times, so it's stuck in there. But so both myself and Deputy Director can attend at the same time. So with that, we'd ask you to consider this as a policy for us to utilize moving forward, and we'd urge your support.
Okay, questions for staff?
Director Yazbek. Do we have the authority to make policy? Is it binding on future DDAs? It's a fine policy, but I don't know that we have the authority to do it.
I would defer to anyone who's an expert on organizational law, but having said that, we do have our own rules, how we operate, and previous organizations I've worked for, albeit on the nonprofit side, policies are quite common. You may see policies for conflict of interest, non-discrimination, the list goes on and on. I don't think this is binding as a policy. I don't think it's a protocol or a procedure, for instance. I think rather it just gives general guidance and also sends a message to our partners. This is how we're going to handle different situations. And as policy goes, any policy is subject to change.
I do have 2 questions. One, is this reflective or similar, I guess, just for my own knowledge, to how the commission handles their travel policy?
Mr. Chair, I can't speak to the specific policy or processes of the commission, but I can relate to you the reason we felt it necessary to put this into writing is because we want to be crystal clear about how we'll handle situations as a DDA. And there were some questions raised when we had a commissioner attend the Main Street Now conference, why the invitation wasn't extended to all commissioners, for example. And I can just briefly explain that that commissioner attended at his own initiative, so we weren't making that opportunity available at that time. But were we to, this gives us a policy of how we work with the city commission and the city manager's office to get the necessary approvals well in advance.
And my second question is there a threshold that either an expenditure or so forth needs to come to the board for prior approval?
Yes. So, Mr. Chair, as you know, and others will relate, that my authorization is up to $5,000. But because training and travel are a special situation, I'm suggesting administrative approval for items less than $1,000. But then I put the caveat, or 20% of the remaining training budgeted funds. That's what that does, is help us manage if we're getting very low in the account, that we know we have to go to the board and ask. But generally speaking, I intend to bring travel and training requests to the board in advance and to work collaboratively with the board to make sure that when these decisions are made, that they're really in the best interest of the DDA and that we're all well aligned in making these decisions together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so there's a suggested resolution before us. Director Yazbek.
I move for all four.
Okay, I have a motion by Director Yazbek, second by Director LaGrasso. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes.
Mr. Chair, just for clarification, Deputy Director mentioned for the travel and training policy, I believe there's only one resolution. So it says, be it resolved, the Royal Oak Downtown Development Authority approves the DDA travel and training policy as presented.
Just for the policy.
Yes, good. So just as clarification, is that the motion that was approved?
Usually more engaged. I'm going to reserve my motion for a few minutes from now.
Okay. No, I think we're okay. With the understanding is there, and we'll get back to you, Director Yazbek. We'll get back to you.
Mr. Chair, can I get clarification on where the second came from for the motion? Thank you. Thank you.
Director LaGrasso, yes, thank you. Okay, next item, upcoming travel and training.
Excellent. So this should be easy. We're laying out what we know to be upcoming opportunities in the next year. I do want to highlight, I've been the beneficiary of having multiple training opportunities throughout my career. I hold multiple certifications, many of which I've listed here. Similarly, the Deputy Director, with her 2 degrees and specialization in marketing and communications, brings some very excellent skills forward. Though we are focused on how we can enhance Deputy Directors' training opportunities, and specifically, there's 3 opportunities that we see. The first being a online a webinar with Main Street America on supporting small businesses. The second is the International Placemaking Week in Detroit from June 24th to 28th. And then finally, additional on-demand courses. So we're asking you to take a look at all these things. Oh, I should say, additionally, the Main Street Oakland County main event, which will be in June. That's when all the downtowns get together, awards are given. And by the way, that's open to all of you too. So, but we are asking for your support to participate in these upcoming trainings. And that's all I have.
Okay. Questions? None? What's the wishes of the board?
Move approval.
Motion by Director Marcus.
Support.
Supported by Director LaGrasso. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, rink at Royal Oak, 2627.
Mr. Chair, I'll briefly set the, oh, I apologize, you didn't call on me.
No, please, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just very excited about this. I'll briefly speak to it, and we also have Mr. Witz in the audience who may have some words to share as well. So I think it's pretty universally recognized that the rink has been an asset for us in Royal Oak. The DDA has contributed $150,000 over the last 4 years. We've seen visitation vary. I think the number from this last year, 17,250 visitors via Placer, may be lower than what we're accustomed to, but we also have to keep in mind we had some very unusual circumstances with some pretty extreme weather. One other stat I want to point out that's positive is of those 17,250 people, 25% were Royal Oak residents from the 48067 and 48073 zip codes. So roughly 1 of 4 of people who utilize the rink are Royal Oak residents, which is an important stat for us. We always want to make sure that our residents feel welcome. And I believe we had just some minor suggestions related to the rink, all of which Mr. Witz has been receptive to. Also, I think the businesses that were patronized before and after the event are worth taking a look at. Mesa, Rock on Third, Royal Oak Brewery, Maury, et cetera. I even see North End Tap Room there. So, we do have a recommended resolution, but I will wait to see if Mr. Witz has anything he'd like to add.
Mr. Witz?
I will keep it brief and just make myself available for questions, seeing we have new board members here. Thank you, Director Kremer, for the introduction and the nice words on the project. I will say, want to let the board know that we're also raising outside of the city a minimum of 125, actually now I'm forgetting the number in the contract, $130,000 of outside corporate support. I want to recognize Henry Ford Health as one of them, M3 Investment Services, Cornerstone Community Financial. These are folks we will be reaching out to shortly. We do have one commitment and have gone out and raised funding. I also want to mention the community engagement was significant. 2 things I'll mention is the toys that were collected at the toy drive, more than 1,500 for cancer patients. And then I also want to mention the Mini Mites hockey tournament that brought hundreds of families here and just populated the downtown for 2 different weekends, in addition to being the most fun moment to watch throughout the weekend. I'm going to share one publicity point that shares with the holiday, which is the next agenda item, so I will not repeat it twice. Between Royal Oak holidays and the rink at Royal Oak, there was a value of publicity for the city of $1.8 million. According to Sisson reports, there were more than 500 stories and more than 50 million viewers from a publicity marketing standpoint. So I will not repeat that again. And then the last thing I'll say is that the Arts Beats and Eats Foundation, with no expense to the city, provided a trade agreement with Worry Free to bring the grass back. And I think if everyone can see, it's come back really well. And I'll just make myself available for questions and trying to keep it brief.
Any questions for Mr. Witz or for staff? Not seeing any. I have one technical question, Mr. Kremer. In the resolution here, it says for approval for the DDA Executive Director to enter into an agreement. This is for the DDA's purposes. This is a sponsorship,
Yes.
correct? Okay. And Mr. Witz enters into a formal agreement with the city of Royal Oak.
The contract.
Been signed, yeah. It's been, the city has
Okay.
signed it and it's pending.
Which is completely
DDA
separate
approval.
from what we're doing here today.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, further, the sponsorship agreement between the DDA and Jonathan Witz and Associates was included in the backup in the package
Yes, okay.
for both this and the next item.
Thank you. Okay. Director DeBuck.
Thank you. I was going to say, what an amazing success this has been for our city. There was some, I remember controversy when we were first talking about it, but after we put so much time and energy and dollars into developing Centennial Commons, this wintertime activation has really brought tremendous value to our residents in the community. So I think we've all recognized that. We're all very familiar with the rink, so I will move for approval.
Okay, a motion by Director DeBuck, second by Director Dunstan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes.
Thank you.
Holidays in Royal Oak. Go ahead and start us out, Mr. Kramer.
Excellent. Thank you.
And Mr. Wetz is available also.
Yes, thank you. So with this, that last year we saw over 4 weekends, approximately 13,000 people visiting the downtown. And really, kind of interestingly, that tracks with the rink, that about 1 of 4 of them were Royal Oak residents, according to the Placer data. So our contribution to this is $142,500, and there's additional contributions, as you'll see in the memo. We do have staff recommendations, which I'll highlight, and we had a good discussion about this at the committee meeting also, where there was support for each of these. First, Small Business Saturday provides an opportunity for us to highlight our retail businesses especially, and we've made the request, and it's been answered affirmatively, that we will incorporate Small Business Saturday into the promotions for holidays in Royal Oak this coming year. Secondly, we're advocating for small business participation with vendor opportunities, both for retail and food, and that also has been received affirmatively, so we're grateful for that. Third, we have a design suggestion around the alignment of the sheds to see if we could get them positioned more in a row to make them more shoppable. And while we don't have a final kind of agreement or a plan that's been approved, that the recommendation has been made, and I know it's being looked into. And that's just consistent with other markets and events where that format has been successful, and we could give example of those if asked. And last but not least, this is more for the future, less for this year, but for the cold weather events, that one of our observations is that we need more substantial heated tents and structures. Of course, everyone's going to look to Campus Martius, and I'm sure Mr. Witz will inform us that their budget is many times greater, which we understand. But we do want to create opportunities where people can linger and stay longer, and that might merit putting some additional resources towards that in the future. But with that, we have a resolution. There's an agreement in a packet. Of course, Mr. Witz, if you have anything to add, but we'd ask for your support.
Anything, Mr. Wetz, at this time?
I just want to mention quickly that the structure of the holidays is changing this year, and in the point that has just been made about the heated tent and the value of that. It was only scheduled for 1 weekend last year. We extended it to 2. This year, the heated tent will be available for 3 weekends. We're cutting 2 of the weekends, cutting it from 5 to 3, so that the holiday markets will be open each weekend, and then the tents will be open on each of these 3 weekends. We will then take other assets like a free skating weekend added to 1, the cookie crawl, toy drive will be added to another, ice sculptures will be added to a 3rd. So if you take the park lighting with the 3 weekends, just want to give everybody a picture of what it looks like. And also, we had pledged to raise $130,000 to this project last year. We raised over $225,000 from outside of the city. So we pledged the DDA $345,000 invested last year. We invested $478,000 into the festivities, all free admission. I have more, but I will hold back on anything else and just be available for questions.
Mr. LaGrasso.
Yeah, I just want to say that I have been witness and I've experienced the amount of effort that John Witz and team put into connecting with business stakeholders, making sure that this impact of this event is in consideration of the local businesses. I know some of the placement of the tents may have been because of being considerate to where tents are at, with the area businesses, including the Henry Ford building. So he's done a fantastic job of that, very, very considerate, and no doubt this will continue to be successful with that type of engagement.
Director Brown.
I would echo that sentiment as a downtown business owner. We've had an incredible experience with John Witz and his team supporting our downtown business, bringing activities into our businesses, and it does make a really big difference on an individual basis to be involved in the holiday program.
Thank you, Director Brown. Yes.
I just want to state that one thing that of the program that's not happening this year is the Elves program. and we are working on another aspect to drive folks to businesses. I have had feedback from business owners, including people on the board, as well as others about the ELS program. But what I want to say, our lead idea with the success of the cookie crawl, which brought 2,600 people alone, is to maybe do a brownie crawl and involve other businesses and just see how that works at just bringing families together and tying in all bakeries based in Royal Oak with businesses. So I think we're going to look at that. But if it's not that, I'm just letting everyone know we will have a business engagement concept. And it will not be the ELS program. So that was one of the notes I meant to mention. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Okay. I think as long as we're giving some kudos here, I think it'd be important to point out Henry Ford has been a great sponsorship partner along with the DDA in a lot of the events that we've put on in the downtown here. And I just wanted to mention that, if I could. Director Dubois.
Yeah, echo everyone else's comments, and Mr. Whitson mentioned all the earned media that our city gets out of this event, leading up to it and during, and also during those cold winter months when we're competing for shopper dollars and giving people a reason to be in our downtown. This checks so many boxes for us and continues to build on that success. So I will move for approval of the resolution.
Motion by Director Dubois. Support I heard from Director Brown. Okay. Anything else? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes. Okay. Retention fund recommendations.
All right, so down to our last few items here. I'll try to be succinct. When we brought this fund forward, it was a pilot project of $100,000. To date, we've received 9 requests from different businesses totaling $82,750. Of these, we're bringing forward, after reviewing this at the Marketing and Business Relations Committee, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we're proposing to fund. These are all fully complete applications with all the required backup, and they really connect with the spirit of the application. As a procedural item, I do want to mention the one numbered 6, North End Tap Room, also as the director sitting at the dais, and I would recommend to abstain on the vote. That it is possible for businesses to apply to DDA programs, but they probably ought not vote if they're receiving a benefit. And that's something that's reinforced in the city charter that we need to be aware of as we do our work. But with that, I'll just briefly say we're seeing a couple of outdoor dining cafes with Give Thanks and Blue Goat, Creative Art Studios, their expansion, North End Tap Room with a very cool virtual kitchen, and an independent platform to sell Nashville hot chicken, and 7 Sundays Coffee also upgrading their equipment to grow their food program. So with that, we'd welcome any questions, but also ask for your support.
Any questions for staff? I'm not seeing any here. I do have a quick comment, though. I would, if there's no objection from the board, I would like to see this item maybe be put on a future committee agenda for some potential reevaluation of the criteria and to update it and take maybe even a harder look at it. I'm concerned about some of the items that I'm seeing that qualify at this time that I'm not sure should qualify for funding. And I'm not objectionable to anything here. I'm ready to move forward with this resolution. I would just like potentially the committee take a second look at it.
Happy to do so.
Okay. Director DeBuck.
I was actually going through this saying I love everything I see here because they're clearly operational items that are going to enhance those local small businesses. But I know you have expertise in this, so I'm very interested in your critique and feedback how we can make it better, or what I'm not seeing as far as what you think might not be worthy investment for DDA dollars. But I think as far as what was initially proposed. And what you've brought forward here and what the business owners brought forward, this is very much aligned with the spirit of the fund. So if you don't have the objective of moving forward this batch and then
I'm fine. I'm totally fine with that. And exactly what you said, I'm 100% on board with the spirit of this. It's just maybe a couple of the particulars.
Yeah, it can always be made better. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, just to reinforce the point that was made, that your point as well as Director DeBuck's, that any pilot project leaves open iteration and refinement over time, and I think those are worthwhile discussions to have. Second, there were some applications that really fit better within our facade improvement fund as opposed to the retention and recruitment grants. So, and we're going to deal with those separately. So, but always open to conversation, open to feedback, open to things that will improve the process moving forward.
And I thank you all for that.
No,
we do not have.
I was going to move for approval of the.
Okay. Motion by Director DeBuck.
Which does include all 5 recommendations. So.
Support.
Is that right? 5? Yes. Okay. Okay, so I have a motion by Director DeBuck, second by Director Brown. Discussion, Mr. Dunstan.
Yeah, I'm going to support this. The only thing I'm a little questionable on is the Creative Arts Studio. That project began last October. And I know we discussed this in the committee, but I think we got to be careful about this because people are going to backtrack, and we got to. It's a precedent that we got to look at. So I would think we would want to treat this kind of like we do the facade program, where they come to us with a plan, we agree to support it, and then they execute. I'm going to support this as it is. I think what they're doing is good. But just in moving forward, I think we should look at it in that, the process.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes.
With respect to that specific applicant, I think they are at a disadvantage that they initiated their project before we created the program. But having said that, really to honor the director's concern, we can specify with that applicant that we will only cover work from the point of our commitment forward. We will not cover prior work that was done. And I think it's reasonable to expect that they have $10,000 of work on their 6-figure project that's still trying to get to completion. But it's a good point, and we'll try to honor that moving forward.
Okay. Anything else on this item? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any objection? Seeing none?
And lastly, abstentions, to call for abstentions. Right.
She just did.
Okay, just to record
Yes.
officially. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that motion passes. Next item is Memorial Day breakfast, farmer's market.
All right. Well, this one should be pretty quick and easy because we've done it for a few years. Basically, what the DDA, you didn't call on me.
No, go right ahead.
I did it again.
You're fine, totally fine.
It's just that I love Memorial Day, let me tell you.
And you're right, we've done this one for quite a while now, so.
Thank you for your understanding, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So attracting 700 to 800 people, it's really a slam dunk. The largest fundraiser supporting kind of a partner and adjacent organization, the Royal Oak Historical Society. We're helping to cover the costs for the space, and we're doing a distribution of 250 downtown dollars this year at $20 each, as opposed to the 500 gift cards last year at $10 each. And the reasoning is our redemption rate was 45% at that $10 level, but we find when we have slightly higher at $20 that the redemption rate always goes up. The other change is we're shortening the redemption window from 3 months to 3 weeks, which is going to create a greater urgency among customers, and it's also going to ensure more of these dollars hit our businesses more quickly, as opposed to letting it drag out. So with that, we'd ask for your support.
Okay. Questions for staff? Any comments? Okay, this is the event where Director Dunstan puts the apron on and makes the pancakes and the sausage and everything else, so.
Be there, be square.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And
Mr. Chair, you need a first and a second.
we did, didn't we?
Do you?
So moved.
I apologize. That is my mistake. Motion by Director LaGrasso. Supported by Director Vachis.
I do have one thing to say. I'm not going to recuse myself because I don't personally benefit from this. I get there at 4 in the morning and I leave at 1 in the afternoon. And I'm 68 years old and it's about enough. So I think I'm going to vote on this. I will tell you that the plan is to hand out each of these certificates. I assume the executive director is going to give me some certificates to each adult admission that's purchased. So that's the way that's going to work.
First come, first served.
Right, and I thought we did a really good job, the people selling the tickets, of explaining to everybody how they work, but I ended up, like at the end, having to gather people together to explain how the downtown dollars worked. But it is a great event. I hope everybody can come. It's really a community event, and I know Mr. Harrison's generally there every year. But it's a time of year where a lot of people, it's the only time of year some people see each other, is that event over here. So it's more of a community breakfast, and we take advantage of the fact that there's a lot of people down here that morning. So please come, best pancakes in town. Well, yes. Thanks.
All that's really important, but the most important point is that Director Dunstan makes fabulous pancakes. They're delicious.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I apologize for my error there. We do have a motion and a second on the table now, and I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Wayfinding signage update. Mr. Kremer.
You got it. Almost at the end here. Hang in there, folks. So we do have before you the wayfinding signage update. You'll also note in the package, I put some of the historical reports to give you a sense of how this has developed over the last nearly 20 years. But what we're proposing are 3 concepts for an update of the existing signs to make them more readable, to help people with navigating the downtown better. But most importantly, we want to actively highlight and regularly update the roster of businesses that we have here. So the solutions that are brought, the concepts that are brought before you, it's a magnetic system where we can easily stick on and peel off, as opposed to the current metal panels we have, which are more resource demanding and harder to replace and change over time. It is going to require to deinstall some of the signs to get the new base put in before redeploying them. And of the 3 concepts, we don't have a strong preference of favor of one over the other. They all have advantages and disadvantages. Concepts 1 and 2 are both zoned maps, meaning they cover a tight, compact, maybe 6-block area, whereas concept 3 is a gridded map that covers the whole downtown. If we put all of the 250 businesses in the DDA on the sign, it would have to be about 6-point font. We're not doing that, but rather with the zoned versions, we can have the larger font size, which is more readable for older adults. And for the gridded map, we have some discretion with the directory by focusing on categories such as retail, entertainment, restaurant and dining, etc. So we don't have a final decision. This is more an update on our progress with more to follow. We had hoped that Ideation Orange would be here to present this tonight. Unfortunately, they had a conflict, so I'd like to ask that whether you choose to take action or not, that we have an opportunity for them to also present this before you at a future date. There is no motion, so
Yeah.
that could be the update.
Was it, your intent was just for informational purposes here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Sorry.
Director Dunstan.
If you notice at the base of each of these signs that are up there now, there's an additional And the reason that was put there is because when the signs were originally installed, the slightest amount of wind would make them, so the retrofitted with that. So if you're still dealing with, is John Moses still someone, the designer over at Ideation, no? Okay. They should be, if it's a new group, they should be made aware that if you take away that base that we have there now, these signs like get nervous. So they, whatever they decide to use for the post, if it's not the same post, they're gonna need to like probably field test them before they install them.
In response to that, we will bring all the technical specifications and the cost estimates forward at a future date, but we will point out that wind sail effect of the existing signs and ensure that anything, it's highly durable and it can take those gusts. That's very important. Thank you.
Okay. Sounds like there's more to come on this, so unless anybody wants to take action on it at this time, we'll move forward. Seeing none, okay, we will move on to the next item. Facade Improvement Fund, final payment, 319 South Washington. Mr. Kramer?
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with that, I think there's going to be one person in the audience who's very happy, Mr. Harrison. We actually have two projects that we're bringing forward for reimbursement. The first is 319 South Washington. And you may know this as the Pilates studio that's on Washington that went in, and we helped with some of the windows and just generally improving that. So we're paying $9,082.20 there, and for Mr. Harrison's project at 510 and 512 South Washington, it's an $8,739 reimbursement on just over $17,000 of cost. And this is within the available balance of $30,000 within the fund. With that, we ask for your support.
Any questions for staff? Motion by Director Dunstan. Second by Director Yazbek. Okay, so these are, okay. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Where do you want to move on to item B in reports?
Sure. Why don't we group the reports, Mr. Chair, and due to the late hour, why don't we present them in writing? But I do want to highlight for the directors that we have our first social media report for a prior month from Atomic Honey. I think there's some really good material in there. So please take some time to look at it and consider it. Especially the demographics, which really stood out to me about the disproportionate number of women in certain age groups which are most active on our platforms, almost by a factor of 2 to 3, even 4 to 1 to our male audience. So I think that's really important to keep in mind as we move forward. Also, we are open as staff, as is the contractor, to any guidance from any of you about how these reports can be tweaked, improved, upgraded, so it's helpful to you in your management role. So with that, I'd ask you to accept those reports as presented. Briefly on my report, I won't read it point by point. I think most of the work is actually reflected in all of the things that we approved today. But as you can see, it's been a very active month. In the last month, I think I reported 18 items. But I also want to be transparent with you about the work since September when I started. Of the 368 projects and a current 76% completion rate, and of those, 236 of them are 100% completed and closed out. And I picked, from my perspective, 28 that really stand out to me. So hopefully this is helpful to you to get a little bit better understanding of the work that's been done. And last but not least, as I like to end every meeting, we have to date logged 710 volunteer hours from our now 21 volunteers. Welcome to our new board members who brought us to 21. And valued at $34.79 an hour, that's $24,726 of in-kind contributions, or on average, that's $1,177 worth of each of your time. So with that, we thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Julia, anything? Okay. Anybody on the board want to bring anything forth tonight? Seeing none, Director Yazbek.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Director Yazbek, second by Director LaGrasso. Discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes, and we are officially adjourned.